Hey, what's up, everyone? Today I'm going to address another excuse people make for eating meat, and that is the idea that they, need some kind of nutrient out of it. I mean, it usually goes something like this.
Protein is the key to life, man. Protein.
I'm not saying you need the protein.
Because it's not like you can get protein in everything. Protein is majorly in meat.
It usually centers around protein, but some other essential nutrients people say that they need from meat or animal products includes, but is not necessarily limited to, omega-3 fats, vitamin B12, iron, zinc, and calcium. However, if something is an essential nutrient, your body needs it but cannot produce it. And given that in terms of their molecular biology, all animals are virtually identical, if we can't produce it, odds are that no other animal could either. This goes back to what I said earlier. Animals are consumers, not producers. Biochemically speaking, they can't do anything we can't already do. First, let's discuss protein. In order to make protein, an organism has to be able to reduce nitrogen. Animals are biologically incapable of reducing nitrogen. Only plants and some microbes can do that. There, I said it. Protein doesn't come from meat, it comes from plants. The only reason it's in the meat is because the animal ate it. But not only that, to get 1 gram of protein in the form of meat, the animal has to be fed at least 4 grams of protein in its feed. You may then ask, why is there seemingly so much more protein in meat than vegetables? Well, remember that while you have to feed an animal at least 4 grams to get 1 gram of protein in meat, you have to feed the animal 10 calories to get 1 calorie in meat. So the protein's going to be more concentrated, but you're still wasting a whole lot of it by producing meat. And don't tell me about how animals can make the non-essential amino acids. I know about them. They can make them, but they can't do so from scratch. See, what they do is they produce these things called alpha keto acids from the breakdown of sugars, and they carry out what's known as a transamination reaction. What they do is replace the ketone group with an amino group to form an amino acid. But the amino group would have had to have come from another amino acid that the animal would have ultimately have had to ingest. So there will be no net production of protein in animals. The second essential nutrient that people say they need from meat is the omega-3 fats. Don't those come from fish? Well, again, no. Fish, like us, are biochemically incapable of synthesizing them. The big fish that you eat get it from the medium-sized fish that they eat. The medium-sized fish get it from the small fish that they eat. The small fish get it from the zooplankton that they eat, and the zooplankton get it from the phytoplankton that they eat, and the phytoplankton synthesize it themselves. Now, obviously, you're not going to be eating phytoplankton, but some good vegan sources of omega-3 fats include walnuts and flax seeds. Now, the third nutrient people say that they have to get from meat or animal products is vitamin B12, which in terms of molecular weight is the largest of all the vitamins and the only one that contains cobalt as a cofactor. Vitamin B12 is abundant in meat, but again, it's not exclusive to meat because animals can't synthesize it, and plants can't either. The only organisms that can are some bacteria. In fact, it's only recently that we've learned to synthesize it in a lab. Now, a lot of these bacteria do live symbiotically in the guts of herbivores, but that's not the only place that they live. Some live symbiotically with plants. And some good vegan sources of vitamin B12 are sauerkraut and almonds. I get most of mine from clams because, I'm not a strict vegan or vegetarian. Now, on to the other nutrients that people say they need iron, zinc, and calcium. Well, these aren't even organic molecules, they're minerals, they're elements. No organism can synthesize them. To synthesize them, you would need a particle collider. They do naturally occur in the ground, but most animals don't eat dirt. Okay, they eat plants. Plants uptake those minerals from the ground, and that's how the animals get them. Like iron. I mean, iron is again pretty abundant in meat, but there are plant sources like lentils and black-eyed peas. And as for zinc, there some good plant sources include pumpkin seeds and wheat germ, and I get most of mine from oysters though. Also, a lot of people think you need to eat and drink dairy to get enough calcium, but again, this isn't true because calcium is a mineral, and as such, it cannot be exclusive to meat or animal products. Um, some good vegan sources of calcium include green leafy vegetables, oranges, almond milk, and almond milk actually has 45% more calcium per serving than dairy milk. And unlike dairy milk, these sources don't have any cholesterol or hormones in them. So clearly here in the developed world, we can sustain ourselves without consumption of meat or animal products. But can everyone else do that?
Yeah, now maybe we have the technology to do it, but not for the whole fucking world.
Yes, it is indeed true that as of now, a lot of people in the third world couldn't sustain themselves off an exclusively vegan diet. But I'm not going to harp on people for doing what they have to survive or stay properly nourished. However, there are two things that should be considered. First is that if we weren't in the developed world squandering all the crops we were as animal feed, there would be more than enough food to support the entire population of the third world on a vegan diet. And the second thing is that while those people may not be able to follow a strictly vegan diet, they're eating, well, most of them are eating only a fraction of the meat we are in the developed world. And that's the thing, because I also hear a lot of people using this argument.
Can you name me a single civilization, a goddamn powerful civilization that had a vegan diet?
Well, as for the great civilizations of antiquity, the Greeks, the Romans, the Egyptians, the Persians, the Sumerians, the Indians, the Chinese, for the majority of the population, most of their diet was plant-based, predominantly grains, wheat in the west and rice in the east. And while the common people wouldn't have been on an exclusively vegan diet, meat was nonetheless a rare commodity for them.
It seemed like the Indian tribes that you hear about were the ones that were omnivores, the ones that dominated, the ones that kicked ass on the battlefield and yet allowed them to survive and prosper because that's how it happened then.
First of all, not all of the Native Americans were tribal. Some had great civilizations. In fact, the most powerful civilization in North America at the time of the arrival of the Europeans was the Aztec Empire, and the Aztecs were almost on an exclusively vegan diet. There were only two kinds of meat they really ate. One was and the other. So, given the historical precedent set by that powerful civilization, should we start maybe factory farming humans for their flesh?
And even more so the cannibals, we're not talking about them.
So, the bottom line here is this: carnivores need meat. You're not a carnivore. And if any of you are going to ask me if I was stranded alone on a deserted island with nothing but another live animal to eat, would I kill it or starve to death? Well, I've got a quote for you. If you were alone on a deserted island with a pig, would you eat the pig or starve to death? If you were not alone, living on a planet with 7 billion people, had access to unlimited fresh fruits, vegetables, nuts, beans, and other healthy foods, and knew animals suffer and die horrible deaths so you could eat them when you don't need to eat them to survive, would you continue to eat them? The difference between our questions is that your scenario will never happen and mine is the choice you face right now. Which do you believe is worth answering? Andrew Kishner. So it comes back to what I've always said. If you're so self-absorbed that you consider satisfying your taste buds more important than another sentient animal's life, then just say it. But